Jesus didn't have a problem with people that's in the streets. He had a problem with religious people.
How can I help anybody when when I was not even able to help my own son?
I would never do that. I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Hope you're ready for a special event. We've got one for you today here on Faith in Your Recovery. Thanks for joining us. We'd love it if you'd take the time to subscribe, click on like, be ready to hit us with a question. I'm sure our guest will be up for that. I know I am, and we'll do our best to give you an answer, okay? So once again, welcome. We're just thrilled to be here, have this opportunity and privilege. Our guest today, this is a little different situation. Our guest hasn't had so much of a personal struggle with addiction, but his family members have. He's going to share that. He's going to share the ministry he's involved in, how God's touched his life, what he's about. And another neat thing about this, his name is Landon. Landon's one of the younger we've ever had on our program, and that gives me hope for the future as I see someone like him with the zeal and the zest to serve and to share and offer his skills. I think you're going to be interested to hear about that. There was a time where we interviewed a gentleman from Indianapolis, Levi Volrath. Levi, he still to this day has a ministry called One Cut. He's kind of shortened it to that. It began as one cut at a time. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Welcome, Landon. We're glad you're with us here on the program today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to what you got to share here. Landon, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners so they can get to know you at the start, and then we'll break your story down to some finer details.
All right, so my name's Landon Grimes. I'm from Portland, Indiana. I'm 22 years old, and I've recently been in the haircutting business, started the Haircuts for Jesus through it, been in the jails, been in the nursing homes, cut the homeless, been all the way to Mexico with it. So God just kind of took that and ran with it, and I just kind of submitted myself to that ministry, and he's took it beyond belief. So in the last few years, I've been focused on just that ministry, and it's kind of what it's my identity really right now is that ministry. So
Landon, what took you into that line of work? Where did the interest start, or how'd that even happen?
I lived in Florida right after high school, moved there with my best friend. Life was great, but I still had a huge hole in my heart, of what I wanted to do and stuff. I felt fulfilled with the surroundings, but not fulfilled in my heart. Moved back, was wanting to get into God. Something was laid on my heart. And then I went to church for the first time, felt the most amazing feelings that you could feel, felt the Holy Spirit. And then I was just getting into barbering right at the same time as I was getting into God. So I was just aligned to both of them. And it just took off.
I'm laughing just because I love God's sense of humor, okay?
Yeah.
As I think back to my Bible reading and my Bible experiences, I don't recall any barbers in there. I recall some people getting their heads cut off, not their hair, but...
Yeah. So when I was getting into it, I was like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to be a barber, but also make an impact on people's lives and make a difference in the world? And I was like, I just had to submit myself to it and just give God the ropes of it, the reins of it, and he took it so farther than I ever would have took it. So
it's not finished, is it?
Not at all, not even close. We're just starting.
Isn't that awesome?
Yep.
We have the excitement of that beginning, the joy that it creates, and even the fun from within that it is to be in the middle of God's will. But we know that's going to change, not necessarily going to diminish, but there's going to be more that comes up and more opportunities, because when he sees our willingness, boy, he wants to work with that vessel. So that's an exciting thing. Landon, tell us about your upbringing. Tell us about your family life, please.
All right, so I've got three brothers. My mother and my father, Brian and Melissa Grimes, and I've got the three of Cody and Corey Bellis, and then Parker Grimes. So growing up, my older brothers were my role models. They're superheroes. Really, I always looked up to them.
How much older are they than you?
Cody and Corey are in their 30s, and Parker's 2 years older than me, so he's 24, 25. So I really attached myself to the older ones. Me and Parker were kind of going through at the same time, kind of going through life together, and then Cody and Corey were kind of paving the way for us.
Okay.
And at a young age, they got into addiction. A little like it was a rough at home with them, just thought what I looked up to. Like I said, my two role models were drug addicts. So it was kind of hard. I wore my heart on my sleeve, and I let it affect me a lot because I just loved them to death. And having the drugs in the family through them was just hard to comprehend. I've been in some tough situations because of it.
Were you guys able to converse about that at that time? Were you able to share your feelings with them to where they had any kind of understanding?
Yes, in a way. When they were going through drugs, they were kind of like shut off. Like their heart was shut off. Like we could tell them, like, man, this is affecting your brother so much, but it kind of didn't hit deep with them because the drugs were kind of overpowering their feelings. So they understood what they were doing, but I mean, it wasn't them who was doing it; it was the drugs. So,
Do you have a better understanding today of their behaviors then?
absolutely, especially just like the mission trips I've been on, and I'm seeing like drugs isn't just something that happens in Jay County. Drugs affect the whole world. They attack anybody. They don't like I said, they don't discriminate. They take anybody they want. So like, I kind of realized like there's a lot of other people dealing with these problems as well. So I've been able to get a firm understanding on it and been able to forgive. It wasn't them doing it to me. It was the drugs. So
How long did that, I'm going to call it conflict and struggle, go on for them and interfere with the relationship?
it's actually kind of sad. Not even sad, but a lot of my core memories of growing up were going to a rehab to visit them, visiting them in jail. So I would say like when I was like 10 to 18, that 8 year span, I would say they were heavily deep into it. So a lot of my life.
What kept you away from it, Landon? Why was it that same disease, that same bug, that same yearning? Why didn't it hit you? Or if it did, how'd you fight it off?
It would be a perfect story if I was to learn straight from them. Like I know what the result is in that. And to be 100% honest with you, I kind of I looked up to it like it was cool in a sense for a little bit. And then I started to like dabble in it myself, started to go down the wrong paths. And I kind of like could see what it ripped apart from them, see what it ripped apart from my mom as well. And having I was watching my mom go through having two sons as an addict. So it tore my mom apart. So it was her who kept me away from it. Like I knew that I didn't want to do that to her, but I definitely kind of, I dabbled into it myself thinking it was cool because my older brothers were doing it. So just the impact on the family that it had, that they did what they did, kind of steered me away from it.
So the bad aspect of that role modeling taught you this isn't something you want for yourself.
Absolutely.
And your love for your mom and your concern for her after watching her go through it with your brothers was more than you wanted to cause.
Absolutely. And growing up, I went to your meetings with my brothers. And I felt, now that I know Jesus and everything, I felt like Jesus was there with me at that meeting, and it was through you. I mean, Randy, you buried you helped you were the pastor at my grandpa's funeral. When I was going through a lot of the stuff handling their addictions, I remember I was in my counselor's office in high school, and the whole week my brother was at the house and he had overdosed, and my mom was gone, and I wasn't supposed to tell my mom about it. I was 15, didn't even have my driver's license, went and picked up my brother from the hospital, and then he was like, don't tell mom. So I was dealing with that. I was going to school, just going straight to my counselor's office, and I was breaking down. And then one day, God just laid on my heart, I feel like, call Randy Davis. So I called you in that counselor's office, and right when I called you, you're like, you got to tell your mom. So I called mom, told her, and Cody had just went to jail right then. So it was like a lot of my core, deepest, hard times in life, God was right there with me, and it was through you.
Always.
It was through you.
Well, he'll choose somebody
Absolutely.
regardless.
Yep.
And as you talk about the meetings that we have, you're talking about a better life, Brianna.
Yep.
So
Yep.
just for anybody interested, we can be contacted at ablbh.org. It'll explain who we are, what we're about, and we can offer you help as well. And we'd love to be able to do that and have God open that door. So during all this, Landon, did you suffer beyond the relational pain and everything that went with that? What else was it like for you?
So a week after that phone call, when I called you in my counselor's office, I had just picked off the game-winning interception on homecoming. Life was at an all-time high, but I was dealing with that struggle with my brothers and stuff. One day I woke up and my brain stopped sending signals to my feet. It's called a conversion disorder. Your brain gets so stressed out that it stops sending signals to parts of your bodies. And for me, it was my feet. So I was in Riley Hospital for a couple weeks trying to relearn how to walk. My brain just got so stressed out.
Now, hold on a minute. So you just the week before had that great football game, was able to have the heroic moment that we all dream about at every age. And here you are a week later and you can't get out of bed, that you're paralyzed from waist down, correct?
It was, super scary. Like when you wake up and you can't feel your feet, that's something that you kind of take for granted a little bit, being able to walk and stuff. So when it hit me, it was just tragic and didn't know how to deal with it.
Were there any symptoms before that, even in hindsight?
Yeah, I went to the hospital in Portland and was checked in. My head was hurting real bad. My feet were tingling, like just really cold, and my nose wouldn't stop bleeding. So those were the symptoms that I had had before it. And then they sent me home from the hospital, said it was some type of headache or something. And then that night, I just couldn't feel my legs at all. And my mom rushed me to the hospital. I still remember I had my arms around my brother and my dad, and they were dragging me to the car, and my feet were just hanging behind us.
There's just no control or ability to use those functions.
Not at all.
Wow. Had to be a scary moment. You were what, 18?
17, 16, right around there. So
Okay. So that's a scary thing at any age, let alone at that age.
Especially when you go into it not knowing what's causing it. So like when I first remember like not feeling my legs, thinking I'm never going to get feeling back in my legs. I don't know what this is. And then luckily afterwards, how I dealt with it was through counseling. They sent me to a bunch of counselors and stuff. And then I had a guy that stuck through with me. His name was Mark, and he kind of changed my life, broke it down, was able to invite my brothers into the counseling sessions, and we were able to get closer through it. And we just took on life together, and one step at a time. I was in the hospital trying to relearn how to walk, and I had to trick my brain. So I'm like trying to walk, dribbling a basketball, thinking that I can do it. And eventually you got it down.
Wow. So how long was that where you were dealing with that paralysis? How long of a time frame?
I would say it took up to a good 6 months to a year to be back at being able to be what I was before, or to be able to play in a sports game or what it be. So it took 6 months to a year.
Just to be normally physical, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow. I can't imagine what that was about. How'd your brothers deal with it?
At that point they were heavily into it, and they kind of distanced themselves from the family because they knew they were hurting us. Like their heart was still there at the end of the day. They knew they were hurting us, but that addiction was bigger than their heart. So like it was just
It's a monster.
yeah, absolutely.
Wow, the control, the power that it can have.
Yep.
And it's just so many times over the years, not so much now. The stigma and bias has changed. But I remember, why don't they just stop? People who didn't know, their comment would be, why don't they just stop? And my answer would always be, they wish they could. Because it was fun till it was no longer fun. And once it took control, just everything, it was an avalanche downhill.
Yeah.
All the psychological aspects, let alone the physical aspects. Now, I'm thinking back early on when you were talking about this paralysis. What's the name again of what that was?
Conversion disorder.
Okay. And you talked about it had a lot to do with your anxieties at that time.
Yep.
Because of everything happening around you. Do you find yourself going through points of high anxiety today, or are you able to ward those off before they get there?
Let me glorify God right here. I don't have those anxieties today because I'm able to trust in God so much that I'm able to just lay him at the foot of the cross, and he deals with them how he deals with them. So I find comfort in just praying over them, just laying them at the foot of the cross. Absolutely.
Well, you've got the cure before the problem hits.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
And I wish I would have known back then. I wish I would have had a closer relationship with Jesus. That way I could have laid it down. But I feel like in that situation, he kind of just not really let me go through it on my own. He was there, but like I had to go through it on my own to get through that. And
well, you've heard it before, and so many of us had said it. The test ends up the testimony. The struggle ends up your story, and then that's all used for the good of others, the glory of God, but for the good of others. And they can have somebody to look to and go, he gets it. He's been there. We have a granddaughter who recently did a TEDx talk in North Carolina, and it was about her anxiety issues. Anxiety is a big thing. And, we think, why would anybody get to that point? There's a lot of reasons. I'm convinced I don't like it, but I'm convinced I can understand why some people turn to drugs. I've heard stories of individuals there in your seat that their parents started when they were 4 years old. Young ladies who'd be sold and pimped out by a parent. And the struggles and the pain, who wouldn't want to numb that?
absolutely.
The constant nightmares. There is a better way, and obviously Jesus is the main way, the truth, and the life. And, it's there. He's that light. He's that help, that hope. And when we don't rely on him, we'll find something else to fill that void you talked about here in the very beginning. And so you can rise above that. What do you have triggers today that, other than prayer, you have a way to deal with the anxiety that might come up?
One of the bad things that I do is I kind of isolate myself. I get into the gym by myself, or I just distance myself, and I can feel myself doing that. Like, it's hard as being a barber too because you're around everybody, but I'll go home, kind of just stay in my room, or I just won't go out and be around people when those triggers start to happen. I distance myself, and I feel myself doing it. So I'm starting to learn how to deal with those, but I definitely feel myself becoming isolating myself from the crowd.
Absolutely. Let's move forward a little to your ministry today, Haircuts for Jesus, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a website for that, Landon?
Right now, I just kind of starting off, and there's no better way than to start than to just start, you know? So,
I've always said a sloppy start's better than no starts.
absolutely, absolutely.
And if you've got to have everything in order, you'll never get started because the order's going to change on the second day of doing your business.
Yep.
All right.
So I got an Instagram right now, just Haircuts for Jesus, and it's just sharing what I do and stuff, getting into the jails and
Okay. Earlier, you said you've done several missions trips. Tell us about some of those and how your ministry has played out during that time.
so my first mission trip was probably the wildest one that I've ever could imagine and beyond beliefs. My pastor at Hickory Grove, Earl Dahl, the guy that got him into pastoring, he took me on a missions trip, and we went down to LA, East LA, Skid Row, and we were praying with the people on Skid Row. It's like 17 miles of homeless people. And Gilbert, this guy, this pastor, he just knew everyone down there. So we're handing out food, and he's sending them over to us to pray. And this is me and Pastor Earl's son praying with them. So I was kind of having to lead it a little bit, and the power that it brought, and then just to pray over those people was awesome. So we left from LA, drove over to Tijuana. They set us up in a daycare for a couple days, and I cut hair in the backyard of the daycare of all these people. Was supposed to go to a different daycare, went back to the first one and to finish up some, and they were like these kids were bringing their dads the next day to get their haircuts. So like, thought I was famous down there in a sense. They just didn't have somebody to show them the love. Then the like one of the last days we went into the landfill where they lived, and that started Haircuts for Jesus. That changed my life right then.
Now, I want to back you up there. You said it kind of casually. I want to make sure people heard it. You went into the landfills where people lived
Yes.
and cut hair.
Yep.
I've been to Haiti. I'm only going to compare it in the sense of the depravity that folks, so many of them live in, the box houses they may or may not have, the homelessness, the digging for the food, trying to get clothing, all of that together. It sounds like there's a lot of similarities. What was that like, cutting hair in a landfill? All I can really picture is either the one there in Jay County that we affectionately call Mount Trashmore, and I can just see 20, 30 individuals up there with you, and you're cutting their hair.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine living a life in a landfill. I get it. We've got to do what we've got to do to survive. And folks, that's where we come in, whether it's giving a haircut or giving a meal. Go ahead.
So leading up to it, they got us in. The way we got in was through the cartel. The cartel was.
Now hold it. The cartel's not usually a positive word.
I know, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Hey, let me interrupt you a minute, Landon, if I may. One of our listeners has a question. Eric, share that question with us.
Sorry. Yeah. Tim wants to know how his barber school experience was.
All right.
How my barber school experience was. So I didn't cut hair before I went into barber school. So I was kind of going off a limb going into there, and they sit you up in these rooms, and you start off with long hair mannequins. You start off with the girl haircuts, and then you just cut down to a men's style. So, and it was a beauty school attached with a barber school. So I'm like 8 barbers in there, and then there's like 80 women. So it was a lot. It was a lot of emotions in there, and it was honestly, it was awesome. The teachers were awesome. So I loved it.
How long was it?
It took me 2 years. I did it Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then would work part-time Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
So is it a license that you have now, a certification?
A license.
It's called a license, okay. And that means you can do what?
Basically just cut hair without getting legally. I mean, I can do it without getting shut down, and I'm able to charge for my haircuts. But going into it, I was in there telling people, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna cut hair for free. I'm gonna go out and, you know, do haircuts for Jesus. And they thought I was kind of crazy. And now to like go back in there and still show them love and get my haircut from them, they're like, dude, you took this exactly what you said, dude.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to throw that word out there again. That most time we don't like to hear the word cartel.
Yep.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we left at the point it's the cartel that got you in there.
Yep.
Go ahead and explain that.
So Gilbert was the pastor that's down there. He gets us into the cartel, and he takes a lot of the family members out of the landfill and set them up with a job at the daycare, whatnot. Well, in this situation, the lieutenant of the cartel, Gilbert, had got his wife and kids out because they moved the kids out of the landfill. They didn't let them in there anymore because of the bad things that were happening to them. They were just like, we're not having kids in here. Wife that Gilbert had got out had to go and have a meeting with them like months before, and we had to pay some money to get into the landfill. So we met her at a restaurant. She drove us up to this landfill. It took like 15 minutes of back roads, crazy turns and everything. And she was the first initiation where she went in and she talked to them. And then from there, they let us in kind of like front and back and into the landfill. And it was the most wild experience to go cut hair. And the whole time I'm shaking. They're like, no pictures, no nothing. This is as serious as it can be, because, you know, one bad thing, we're with the cartel, you know, or we don't come back or something. So we're just like abiding by their rules just to get these men some like love, and men and women some love for Jesus. You know, it attains to all of us. So we'll go to the landfills to do it if we got to.
That's incredible.
Yep.
How long did you spend there in the landfill approximately?
So when we first got there, we parked up this huge hill, walked down it with like boxes of oranges, waters and stuff. And then we kind of went out and handed those out for, I'd say, an hour or so. And then in the midst of all this trash and everything, Gilbert just telling me, dude, you got to cut hair down here. And I'm, 20, 21 years old thinking, I'm not cutting hair down here. Like, do you see the surroundings? It smells like fish, like rotten everything. Like, I was like, I ain't cutting hair down here. You're crazy. And then he grabs this table out of this rummage that everyone's searching through. These big trucks are coming in, we'll dump it, and then people just scatter to it. And while they scatter to it, they have somebody hold their spot down where they live, because it could be gone just like that. If you move from your spot, somebody could come back and claim it. So there was a team of it. So we were handing out food and stuff for about an hour, or 35 to an hour. And then we started cutting hair. And then he just pulls this table out of the midst of all this trash, and it was a perfectly good table. And I was able to set up there. They were a little like hesitant to come over and get their hair cut because they've never had somebody come down to cut hair. So it took one person to jump in, and then it kind of just was a trickling effect where they all came. And then the crazy thing is they set the lieutenant right beside me of the cartel. He's watching me, making sure I don't do anything and I'm not supposed to be, not taking pictures and whatnot. And I turn around to clean my stuff off, and I turn around and he's in the chair to get his haircut. I was thinking,
I'm shaking for you here, Landon. You don't want to give him a number 2 cut if he wants a number 1.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah. So we had a translator there with us. Gilbert's sister, she translated it all. And these guys were coming to me looking like they lived in a landfill. And I was able to I remember one of the guys was like, eyes were both black, and I'm having to scrub the dirt off of his face before I can even start. And it was just like the most humbling experience.
Had to be.
It changed me more than it changed them. I came back from that on fire for God because of just the things we take for granted every single day.
I've never heard a missionary story where that wasn't the case.
Yep.
That you go and you are changed more than any change you hope to have made.
Yep.
You come out of their farm, they get a haircut and look and feel better. you come out of there with a changed heart that goes all the way through.
Yep, and I've been able, from just that mission trips, been able to share that story, and not even just to share the story, but I've been able to share the love of God through thousands of people, in a sense, just from the fire that I was given through that mission trip. So
Do you want to go back?
absolutely, I plan to go back this year. I plan to take it to a whole nother level. I kind of had mentioned something to Levi about going back with me and getting that team down there, and he was like, "Come on, like we'll send a whole box truck of everything they need down there. We'll get going." And
Tell the folks who Levi is, and then I'll fill in a blank or two.
So I'll kind of wind it back a little bit. When I was in barber school, I'm praying for an opportunity to do something like this. I'm praying, and I'm just praying hard, but the answers weren't given to me right away. I wasn't given to go into the jail. I knew what I wanted to do, so I passed my barber exam. I get 2 steps out of the door, and I get a phone call from your assistant. "Hey, Landon, you want to go cut hair in jail?" And if that ain't God, then I don't know what.
I didn't know you just walked
I'm
out
Randy.
of
I
there.
wasn't even 2 steps out of there, and I literally boom, boom. I'm gonna call my mom, tell her I passed, because she was nervous with me as well. And I'm thinking it's her calling, and I answer it, and it's Candy, and she's, "Hey, you want to go into jail?" And right then I'm thinking, this is Jesus right here. So fast forward, I go into the jail with you guys, and I meet Levi, one cut, and he kind of raps and does the whole Christian hip hop stuff, and
Cool guy.
cool guy. And I'll tell you, there's people in my life that I've known that Jesus has sent me, and Randy being one of them, and
Thanks.
Levi being one of them. Like, God will surround you with a core group of people with the same beliefs, the same missions, the same everything. And he did that with Levi. Levi has doing what I want to do. He's paved the way. So it's cool to sit back and kind of watch Levi. And I've learned from him in the jail the way he's able to. I'm praying for these doors to open, and I'm getting going through those doors, which would be the jail, and I'm going through with weak knees, like, God, I don't know what I'm doing here. And then I look over and I see Levi preaching to him. I'm kind of taking a page out of his book, like praying with him and stuff. And
He'd be thrilled about that. Okay.
yeah,
He's not trying to hold it, obviously.
yep,
Levi, every week, A Better Life, Brianna's Hope goes into the J County Security Center, the jail in Portland, Indiana. The final Friday of the month, we're able to give the inmates haircuts, and we're able to offer it to anybody and everybody in there. And along with that, we've had the opportunity to give the inmates new shoes. We bought a meal a couple of times. We'll be buying another one this Friday. We've given them hygiene items. And the way these guys provide it, and those who provide it to them, it's nothing but God, because there's no way we could afford as an organization to make that happen or to reimburse it. But the way it comes about, the difference it makes, the lives it's touched, changed, and saved spiritually, and I believe physically, that they made better decisions. It's allowed us to impact those who are oftentimes forgotten, discarded. You find the word you want to use, but we're letting them know, as Landon has said so many times here, it's about Jesus' love. It's not about who we are or who you are. Jesus says you're worthy. We believe that. And that's good enough.
And I kind of take that jail really personally, because my brothers were in and out of there. And like Levi comes from Indy. We got his team that comes from all over that comes down to preach there. But like at the end of the day, they're leaving and going back to where they were. And I'm in Portland. I'm in J County. And those people that are coming through the doors that get their haircuts are my older brother's friends. They're people that I know personally.
Classmates. Former team members.
And I'll tell you, you said that God has a crazy sense of humor. I'm sitting there cutting hair in the jail, and I walk through, like the second block that walks through was this guy that I used to buy some drugs off back in the day. And I'm thinking, and now I'm in here telling him about Jesus, like cutting his hair, telling him about Jesus. Like, this is, like, God, you got a sense of humor.
Yeah.
You want to use me right now. Like, and it's just awesome. And I was kind of sharing with you too, like, these people were getting out and coming to tell me, man, I'm still following Jesus. I'm still, you guys impacted my life. So It's awesome.
It's not, so many times I hear the term jailhouse religion because there's such desperation involved. I can guarantee you these guys are making the Christ decision on their own from their own hearts. They get they're broken. I'm broken. We're all broken. And Jesus is the only one who can put that back together. They're starting to see it. That allows us to make a difference. And having someone like Landon on board for that allows our organization to do things we never dreamed of doing. So it's good stuff, and we're thankful to God for it. Landon, we're getting close here toward the end. What would you like to wrap up with? What do you want to make sure you say, explain, identify, or share with folks?
Really, if you've got something on your heart, or if you've got a calling inside that wants to express anything, invite God into that calling. Invite God into your life. Let him know or just give it to God fully, and He will take it beyond beliefs, and just trust in His plan, trust in His grace that He gives us, and just give it all to God. Yeah, absolutely. And at 22, I've been blessed to figure it out, but use whatever you can to glorify God and give God the glory, and just don't hold back. You'll have bad times in life. And I look at John 4 or something where the disciples he sends them in the waters, and the waters are heavy and it's dark at night. And sometimes our bad things in life, our trauma there's dark waters. It's nighttime. The waves are rough. But God will meet you at that 3-mile mark, like He did those disciples, and He will take you where He wants to. So, just count it all joy. Find glory in the suffering, and just keep going with God.
Amen. We've got another question. Eric, share that with us, please.
Yeah, this is from Tim again. He wants to know, have you made any cool connections through barbering?
Cool connections. I take everyone as a cool connection, but like just the relationship, like Levi and Redeemed. Redeemed's huge. This Christian rapper, and J Truth. He's big too. Big too.
Those two guys are awesome. Couple of my favorites.
Yeah.
I don't mind sharing that. I love them all, but those two guys have got a special way about them for Christ.
Yeah. So, I would say I've met. Those are some cool connections, but every connection I make, I literally tell myself, "You're doing haircuts for Jesus. Imagine you're cutting in Jesus's hair every time somebody walks through that door." And I treat them like they are Jesus. I treat them with just the love of it, and try to not be too pushy on it, and just let them like come to me with the openness, and just kind of like just preach the life through them.
In all honesty, Landon, during your comments a few moments ago, you said something like, at 21, I think I've got it. You almost made that sound like you're at a ripe old age, okay? Because many of us don't get it at 21.
Yeah, well, and I just know what at 22, I know what Jesus has done for me, and I don't see a way, honestly, that I'm gonna go any different. There's no possible way. I've known that the blessings that He sent me are through Jesus, so I'm not gonna switch up on them at all. So
Yeah. You also made a comment. You got to give it all to Jesus.
Yep.
And that's what it boils down to. If you're not going to give it up, it's like handing someone a toy saying, please fix this, and keeping both hands on the toy. Maybe a poor illustration, but until you free it up to Him, He can't work it with His fullness.
absolutely.
Until you do. Landon, thank you for your time. Thank you for your ministry. Thank you for your love of Christ and what you're doing with it. Look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Randy.
It's been awesome to have you, folks. As I said early on, make sure you subscribe and like, and we can continue to provide you these kind of testimonies, these kind of stories. I told you it was going to be a little different than most of ours, but I think it's as powerful as any we've ever had. We're going to look forward to having you back. Once again, as we always like to remind you, number one, God loves you, so do we. Number two, stay in the battle. Hang in there. God bless. Amen.